layer or two coating of the mother of pearl around it. But you never know what you're going to get until birthday, you know, when it comes out. So you put in round every time. You only get about 1/4 pearls round. 1 out of 5 even is a pretty safe number.
So cultured pearls have an implant. Is that where?
True,
Yeah,
true,
okay.
yes. So the cultured pearl is not only always round, but it has an implant, and it's been manipulated by man. Is basically what you could define it as. And then, but we do have these other type of pearls, which Fanula and I like, called the Keshi pearl, that doesn't have an implant, but yet it's still called a cultured pearl because we tried to make a pearl that had an implant in it. The oyster rejected the implant, yet it made a pearl anyways, and they're not round, these types. Okay, they look like this. There's a bowl here if you want to. I don't mind. I didn't want to scare you off in the beginning when I said people drop stuff, but you know, be reasonable. I'll look at them near something where if they fall, they're not going to fall into the sea. And you can look. So the Keshi are 100% mother of pearl, all bound around itself with no center implant of shell. So meaning that they'll never be round, but they're grade A because they're pure. And they're always going to have a really interesting shape and appeal because they're so unique. So this kind of pearl is a result of a failed implant procedure, yet nonetheless we still get something. And the reason it even makes this something, this Keshi pearl, is because of the cell tissue implant we're also going to introduce in the sac there. And that's what we're going to show you. So plankton, and that's what it eats. So they don't really do a lot of moving around once we have them. We actually, let me open one so you can see and take a photograph if you like, the inside of the oyster. This one's alive, this one's dead. The difference, how you can tell, is that we'll just put a clamp in this one to stretch it open and stretch the muscle, and I'm going to show you the inside in a moment. And this one we've killed so I can actually separate it into two. It's still holding on at the hinge. But you see the hinge here is where it naturally opens and closes for the feeding. And here we have the two halves that are still connected, but nonetheless this oyster is not going to survive because the muscle here has been severed. The natural attachment hair called the byssus is this hair here. It grows out from the muscle and then it looks for something to land onto and attach. Just like mussels you eat, maybe if you've ever cleaned mussels before you eat them, you see the little beard or the attachment hair. Same with the oyster. So we cut off its natural hair, we give it a haircut all the time, and then we drill a hole through here, and that's how we keep them up. So the name of this oyster is the black lip oyster. That's obvious when you look here. You can see the black lip on both sides, and that's what makes the perimeter of the shell very black, is due to the cell tissue that's black here, creating the color black. Now you would think, okay, that's a good thing. Black pearl should be black. But the problem is we don't really want the black pearl that's matte black like this. We want one that's got some luster in it. So what we're looking for to make pearls that have nice luster and unusual colors, not just black, but maybe black and green, black and pink, or maybe if we can get a little speck of blue in there, that would be nice, or yellow. So the black pearl now has become the multicolored pearl, where we've swayed away from making or trying to make just black color and trying to make more of the multicolor. So there's a technique to do this to kind of recreate the colors and get a better chance of having good colors with luster and all that from your shell. So what we do, what Reno does, and I'm going to show you some sample shells to get you an idea, pass that around, and what I want you to look at is the upper part of the shell beneath the black lip. And you can see some color in there, hopefully. And every oyster shell demonstrates a different color. This one I'm holding is kind of brownish pink. The others I'm passing around have more of a yellowish green color. So the color of the mother of pearl in the shell will dictate the color of the pearl that you make later. So what we do is we kill one oyster that has a beautiful shell color, becoming the donor oyster, and we take out its genetic material out of its shell and graft it in the living host oyster that gets the implant. So what we do is we put all this in the animal's reproductive sac, which is very small in this animal right here. This little sac here on the mirror, it's kind of broken because she didn't survive well when we opened her up. Well, it looks like this, okay? It's a little sac like that. It's completely solid, enclosed, and this is where, well, the animals are hermaphrodites, so this is where eggs and sperm are created to reproduce, but this is where the implant's going to go in. And the implant I'll show you now, they're made of shell, and we're just sort of copying, you know, what could happen in nature. In nature, you could have an irritant is introduced into the animal accidentally, maybe an organism trying to drill through the shell to get in, or maybe something that got sucked in while it's feeding. So anything substantial enough, not really a grain of sand, but a little rock or a piece of coral or some kind of sea worm threatening the oyster's well-being, the oyster reacts by secreting the irritant with mother of pearl. And the mother of pearl is simply layers and layers of a calcium carbonate mineral that sticks together with a binding agent and creates the hard shell. So in every pearl today, this technique of the cultured pearl then is introducing intentionally a shell implant that is always round. That doesn't mean you always get round. And that's what we put in the oyster. But instead of putting it in randomly anywhere, we put it in this little sack here, hoping that it will hold, first of all, instead of fall out, and hoping that it could create more of a round shape because it's nestled in there real tightly like that. So these are the implants. The starter size is small, like this. And you can get real close and photograph, just don't touch them. They're ready for operation. And you notice right away different sizes, different colors. So, okay, the different sizes, like I was mentioning in the boat, we start with a small implant and go into the gradual, bigger sizes gradually, because you don't want to bombard the oyster and overload it with something huge that it can't hold on to yet. So as the sac stretches with the growth of each pearl, you can introduce then another larger implant. So we start with maybe a 6 millimeter implant made of shell, then wait 2 years. We're likely to pull out a 7.5 to an 8 millimeter pearl, then we put in an 8 millimeter implant, and so on and so on.
Alright.
So the implants are made from a mussel shell that's harvested out of the Mississippi River. And it might sound strange in the beginning, but the history goes back over 100 years to Japan with Mikimoto, who worked on the Koyo oyster in Japan, which gives us a white pearl, just because it's a different species of oyster with a different colored shell. And he was the man responsible for the research behind the technique we're going to show you, and it's used around the world today. It's the cultured pearl. So it took him years and years to figure out what material the oyster would hold on to best, make a more quality pearl, and not reject. Because the oyster is capable of rejecting the foreign object that comes into its body too, you know. It doesn't know. As far as odds go, back to your question, yes, that kind of pearl is going to be more valuable and harder to make than this type. Although, I have a big one in here, if you guys want to gaze your eyes on something unusual. This is a keshi that's huge. So that kind of keshi can take 6 to 8 years to make. So Reno is doing some experiments where because he knows, when he knows when the oyster drops the implant and makes a keshi pearl the first time around, so when it makes a little one the first time, he knows that it's going to probably do that again. So we can start experimenting around with leaving the oysters in the water more than 2 years to see if we can get a bigger buildup. You can gather closely if you want to. So what he's doing here is he's removing the black lip. And again, I mentioned that we don't want the black lip because we'll get pearls that either have black spots on them or they'll be completely matte. They'll be black, but they won't have that luster or that appeal, you know, to the eyes. So we want to get rid of the black lip. And what we're really after is the tissue, which we call the mantle. And the mantle is the next layer beneath the black lip where you see the color high up in the shell. In the middle of the shell, it's often very gray, but higher up near the black lip is where you start to see those greens and yellows and pinks. So, you know, nothing is guaranteed. We try and take the cell tissue from the colorful part of the shell and recreate that. But then it's up to the oyster. Maybe it's not going to get exactly the color we were hoping for, but it really does improve your odds of getting better color and luster later on. So that's why this part is important. So he rinses that in salt water. And he's going to cut that into small pieces. And then that is only fresh for the day, unfortunately. So on demonstration day where we're doing a handful of oysters, we do waste some of the material, which goes back to the sea and the fish eat it. But on a busier day when he's going to work on many oysters, it'll all get used fresh today. We can't freeze it or save it for another time. And then the shells eventually all get recycled too. You have bins here of shells. So all the mother of pearl is, this is all polished up and made into buttons or costume jewelry, or, you know, in ancient times they made fish hooks with oysters, and tools to scrape coconut, and it was used more as a tool, the oyster shell. Or today it's used more artistically. But we don't really get involved in that part of the industry. We just recycle the taking the implant, the genetic implant called the mantle, just one little square of that, and he's going to put it in the sac and hold the sac open, and now he's going to grab the nucleus, the shell implant. So it's important that the cell tissue implant and the shell implant touch each other and meet in the sac there. Otherwise it won't take on that color and we won't have a successful operation. So his technique, his handwork, his concentration, his eyesight is really critical.
Really good eyes.
Yeah. And for now, he's young and well, so we won't criticize him. But his day is coming, and I have a pair of glasses right here waiting for him. But you know,
Did
you
they
want
say
to
we
try?
don't want them?
I want to see what he looks like. Okay, this one, he's already announcing what he sees in there because out of experience he knows. But he can see that it's a keshi pearl. Remember the pearls over there that aren't round? He can see just in the sac that it's got this unusual shape. And so he's going to pull it out nonetheless. And that is called a keshi pearl. Okay. Now, when a keshi pearl comes out, we don't put another implant back in because we know that it's very likely it will drop the nucleus. Why waste your product and time trying to make a round pearl when you know the oyster is just going to let go of that implant? So, okay, we know that one will make a keshi, no big deal, and that is sellable too, and many people want to buy a keshi. It's cheaper, so that appeals to a lot of people too. Okay, number 2 then. So we had one virgin, one keshi, and now we don't know. What is this one, you know? It's got a pearl? Okay, he sees something. So obviously he's making an incision, he's taking his hoop, and he's hooping it out. And there we go. It's a smaller pearl. I mean, they can be much smaller than that. And he's going to look for an implant of equal size so that he can slide it right back in the sac while it's still open and stretched to that size. It's very important that you follow in proper order in size so that the nucleus doesn't fall out too, or it doesn't rip and stretch too much, the sac.
Wow.
Anyone have an idea what size that might be? We'll measure it in a second, but it's not like in school where you get the jelly bean jar, you know, if you get the right answer, but I think
9.
You think a 9. Okay, that's an educated guess. Kieran has a little more experience. I'm going to say 9.8. What do you say? Let's see who's the master. Oh, he says an 8.7. Wow. I'm sorry, but Summer wins again. 9.7. What did I say? 8, right?
9.8.
Yeah. Enough said. Karen, you were close. 9. The surgeon, not good. He needs to. I think it's time for the glasses.
So you said that was small.
Well, I'm saying, you know, it's small-ish. It's, I would consider that to be a first-time pearl. So meaning the first pearl that's come out of that particular oyster looks like that size or smaller. You're probably never going to get bigger than a 9.5 or so then on the first time around. And that first one happened to be round, where the second one is not round, and it may be a little bigger. You always measure it, you know, through the middle, not point to point, but it definitely looks bigger to me.
It's not round?
No, can you see? It's kind of an oval shape.
Go guess odd.
Uh-oh, Reno's got the competitive streak going. He wants to know my bid. Well, the other one was a 9.7, so you guys make the math there. 10.4. Discount. Discount. 10.5. He said 11. Oh, again. Today,
10.5?
yeah, I should have bet some Cokes. That's usually our deal. We bet each other drinks. Whoever wins, he has to pay up tomorrow. I love the color on this one, though. I don't know if you can see. It's not polished yet, but it has a nice pink and blue and green kind of thing going on. And once it's polished, it's going to be really pretty. It's an egg. We call that an egg pearl when it's shaped like that. And we'll look at them when we're done. Oyster pearl or the Nabe pearl, you cut out of the shell. So you have to kill the oyster every time you do that. This is the last one then, so here we go.
This looks like a bigger shell. It's like, would this be?
Bigger shell, bigger pearl. Is that what you're thinking?
Ooh.
Karen?
Well, would
Come
you? How big do they get? Like, how big is a?
I've seen bigger than that, but not
Yeah.
huge.
Yeah.
You know. Let me ask Reno, what's the biggest shell you've seen? He doesn't speak English. Let's see if he understood.
Si siguro lang siguro lapel?
No,
No? Siguro.
c'est quoi le plus grand coquille t'as vu en acre?
Asit.
He's seen one as big as a dinner plate.
In the farm here
Yeah,
that you use?
but that's rare.
Mm.
C'est rare quand même. Hein? Yeah.
Mm-mm.
Et le pearl?
Et la perle?
Le plus gros? Le plus gros pearl.
Biggest pearl.
Là, hein?
22.
22.
Wow.
The first one I showed you at 18.
Ooh.
So the problem is this only goes up to 20. So you gotta get a bigger measuring device. Yeah, it wasn't round.
This was spatial.
I saw it. J'ai vu, hein? C'était la mort, hein?